Hey, what's up? It's Holden here. We're doing a little Bets and DFS. I love it. It's a little special show for our Run Pure Sports subscribers. Run Pure Bets, too. My God, you do both of those and you're going to win some money. I love it. We got Keg here making his debut on our side from the Sports Keg from Run Pure Bets. Keg, great to have you. You'll be breaking down the bet side today. What's going on Run Pure Bets right now? How do I get in? How do I make my money by signing up?
What's going on, buddy? Yeah, you've been on the live betting show a couple times. I'm excited to do a show on this side with you. We had a really good first week. Pretty much everybody crushed. And yeah, that's it. You were on the show with us the other night. We went 4-1 there. It's been exciting. Really good start to the NFL.
All right, very good. Mangone, DFS. Week number 1, did we learn anything DFS-wise? Because I thought it was actually a little bit more predictable than I thought it was going to be. Good play.
Yeah, I mean, I learned it was a good first week for me, right? Like, and the crew, right? It seemed like we just were spot on with everything. Not spot on with everything, but we did pretty well. I think some of the things that we thought were right, and some of the things we thought were wrong, it's okay, right? It's the first week. We're learning. We're trying to figure it all out. And we're going to have to adapt in time. We also don't want to overreact, right? I think that's a super important thing. Listen, I'm a Packers fan, but the Packers now are not like, the greatest offense of all time. They're amazing. I love Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever watched. But yeah, I don't want to overreact. I don't want to underreact. I don't want to say Saquon Barkley is, a guy that rushes for 6 yards a game or however terrible he was. It's just, let's not overreact. Let's not underreact, but let's, look at all the information, try and figure it out and, pick the winners.
All right, cool. Let's do it. We got Lions, Packers. We're going to get into the Falcons, Cowboys. Baltimore against the Texans. We got that one coming up. Kansas City and the Chargers. Tennessee, Jacksonville. Denver, Pittsburgh, and the Cardinals taking on the Washington football team. Keg, let's start with here, dude. Lions, Packers. This one opened at Green Bay -6.5. Bet down to 6 -10 at most places. The total went from 46 to 49.5. What's your take on these two lines here, Keg?
Yeah, disappointing start to the season for the Lions. They drop a tough one to the Bears. About middle of the pack after the first week in DVOA. Stafford had, his normal week. Adrian Peterson looked really good, though. 14 carries, 93 yards. Really not that bad for him. Defensively, they were average at best. I mean, I'm not a Mitchell Trubisky fan at all. When you let him put up 27, there's an issue. On the other side of the ball, Packers looked really good, man. Top 10 already in offensive DVOA. Rodgers just crushed. Devontae Adams goes crazy, like 14 for 156, a couple touchdowns. The total, like you said, moved about 3.5 points. You can only look at the under, I guess, if you haven't bet the total yet, considering you lost a lot of value. Would it shock me to see this game go under? Not really. Would I bet it personally? Probably not. Not really interested in the spread here either way. Line seems about right. Later on today, we'll have the power ratings out for the bet side. From a prop standpoint, interested to see the overreaction here on Devontae Adams. He goes crazy. So if the line hasn't moved substantially from week 1, there's a good shot I might hop on Adams over receptions, over yards. If the market moves the line too much and they overreact, possibly go under. But that's about it.
Okay, very good. From a DFS perspective here, Mangone, you look at these two teams. There could be some DFS goodness. I want you to start with Adams. We don't know what Galladay's status is going to be. I know Wednesday practice, he came out, and Patricia said he wasn't going to do much, so that's a little concerning. Thoughts at the running back position, too, obviously, with Aaron Jones getting most of the, I think it was 4 out of 5 carries inside the 5. He's getting the workload we want. DeAndre Swift dropped the touchdown on the other side. Who are the guys we're targeting here in DFS, Mangone?
Yeah, I mean, so Adams just like pops off the page, right? Like, I think he makes a ton of sense. I also think we're gonna have some value a bit this week that we're gonna be able to easily get Adams in, and it won't be too big of a problem. So I think Adams is gonna be like a priority guy for me. I might just go pretty heavy on him. It depends on obviously ownership and what's he going to be in tournaments and cash games. But I like him a ton. He's definitely going to be a guy I want to get into my lineups. I am curious though what Jay basically said. Like, what is his prop going to be? Right? I don't know what they're going to end up putting it at, but it is worth noting. Like, one thing you expect, right, is the Packers are playing the Lions, right? And let's say Kenny Golladay doesn't play. Like, if Kenny Golladay doesn't play, that offense could be struggling even more. And they might not need to lean on Devontae Adams, right? Like, one reason the Packers were throwing to Devontae Adams a ton is, well, because they were needing to lean on him a bit, right? Of course, they went up and down the field too. Aaron Rodgers has something to prove, and if Aaron Rodgers has something to prove, he's going to throw to Devontae Adams. Don't get me wrong, but that line could be a little too aggressive on his prop. I'm curious to see what it is, but it's like basically betting Damian Lillard unders. It's definitely not a fun time, but hey, the line could be too high. Right. We'll have to see. It's not a fun sweat, but like Devontae Adams a lot here in this spot. Another thing that's worth noting, man, this Packers team in general, like these receivers like Lazard and Scantling, like they're not great too, right? Like I will say they looked a lot better in week 1, and Rodgers, it looks like he trusted him. So I think if you want to buy the Packers right now, I think that's perfectly fine. On the other side, I don't know how to really run it back, right? Because if Galladay's there, I mean, there's a lot of different guys to go to. My friend brought up a great point. We were talking about like the games, and he was like, man, I just don't want to roster any players from an Adrian Peterson offense. It's just like these guys just feed the crap out of him, and it just makes no freaking sense. It's like, dude, it's 2020. Adrian Peterson is a bell cow, ain't it, man? Like, let's stop with this crap. So the Lions side, I don't really know how to approach it too much. Obviously, if Galladay's out, Marvin Jones and TJ Hawkinson are definitely guys to look at, and Hawkinson's price did not move too much. I wish he would have ran a little more routes, but he was still solid, and the price is still right.
Yeah. One thing I'll add quickly, Holden, on the defensive side of the ball for the Packers, Football Outsiders had them ranked the 30th worst defense after week 1. I know Mangone's a Packers fan. Kirksey, though, nice first game, led the team in tackles, but they did not look good on defense at all on Sunday.
I mean, it's a day that ends in Y for the Packers defense. I'm used to it.
What do you think about the Packers offense here? Dive into that just a little bit more. Like, Rodgers is not bouncing back with another big day. This was a game last week that when I'm watching it, the top 3 corners for the Lions go down, and that is why Mitchell Trubisky just took over in the fourth quarter. Right. So I don't want to get burned by, saying, oh, it was a fourth quarter here, but the Lions have legit issues back there. And if you buy into Aaron Rodgers, I feel like you got to buy into this Green Bay offense big time, no?
Yeah, I think as long as the offensive line holds up, I think Rodgers has a big year because I agree Lazard's not that good, but I do like Valdez-Scantling. He had almost 100 yards and a touchdown himself. And, we didn't see anything new that we didn't see last year from Devontae Adams. He is a machine. He will be the number 1 option all year. So, yeah, I do think Rodgers probably puts up big numbers again. And I do think that they probably score a bunch again. I'm not saying I'm going over a total that I've already lost 3.5 points of value on. But considering the secondary problems on Detroit, I wouldn't mind looking at the Green Bay Packers team total over. If you're looking to back the over here, I would lean towards the Green Bay Packers team total over rather than go over 49.5 where you already lost 3.5 points of value.
Yep. And the only concern for me in this game would be it's a division game, but Green Bay's at home. They got a nice total. I think the total is moving up toward 28 though, right? I mean, that's –
yeah, I will say this. Holden, why – so we talked about Aaron Jones a little bit, right? But so let's walk through the most likely game script of this game. The most likely game script is Packers in the fourth quarter are up. The Lions are trying their best to catch up, and they don't. And the Packers just hand the ball off in the fourth quarter and just close the game out, right? Like, that's the most likely scenario. I will say the one thing the Vikings did do is they put the pressure on the Packers, right? It's not like they just folded completely. Like, they were still, out there running and gunning. And the Packers, they weren't giving up, right? It was kind of a little bit of a shootout there in the second half. So that's the one thing I think that could play really well into Aaron Jones' favor. And in DFS, at the prices that Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers cost, sure, they're very safe, and I expect a really nice floor. But you can argue that there's a possibility for getting some leverage in playing Aaron Jones in tournaments instead of the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams stack. And you might get that at lower ownership, and you can leverage on top of those guys as well and really capture a higher ceiling. Maybe not a higher ceiling, but basically you can probably eliminate Rodgers and Adams' ceiling by all the handoffs going to Aaron Jones, and he could absolutely have a nice game. So I think that's certainly in play, and it's more of a likely scenario than people would expect. Again, Devontae Adams, cash games, I want that huge floor. I mean, it's massive, but Aaron Jones in tournaments, it catches my eye for sure.
And 27 and a half. I see in a couple spots. I see 28. I wouldn't bet 28 and a half, but I don't mind 27 and a half, 28.
I'm actually going to dig into that as the week goes on. That's just a heavy number, even though Detroit is, really banged up in the secondary. But Mangone brings up a good point there, at least from the DFS side. Think about how this game could go. Think about it from different angles, maybe the running game, but then maybe everybody gets theirs too. That's the other thing to look at here, Mangone. Maybe everybody gets some. And would you feel comfortable with a Rodgers, Jones, Adams stack? I don't know about that.
You'd probably want to run it back, right? Like you'd have to run it back with someone if you do that. I think it's possible because it's not like Aaron Jones can't get a receiving touchdown, right? You get the double dip, so that's definitely possible. I did want to ask a question to you guys. Do you think this thing could trend the other way back? Like it's at 49 and a half. Is this thing going to go it's not going to get to 50, right? It could go the other way where maybe you can get a little bit of value if you wait. What do you guys think of that?
It wouldn't shock me off that week that the Green Bay Packers offense put up. It wouldn't shock me if it continued to climb public money.
All right. Okay, yeah. I'm just wondering if people should wait or they should if they should wait or if they should it depends what number you obviously want. I'm just wondering which way you think it kind of trends.
I mean, the total's already gone up almost a field goal. Now, they posted the original one a while ago, right? But people are starting to push on the over already just because what they saw out of Rodgers. And again, I look at this Detroit secondary right now. We got to find out who's going to be healthy and who's not. But if Trubisky could tear him up, I think anybody could tear him up. So that's my take on that game. And hold on, one other thing. We're going to talk about another wide receiver that I think might be a decent cash pivot off of Adams if you need to save a couple of dollars. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. Atlanta, Dallas, totals 52.5 minus 10. It's wow. I mean, Dallas was pretty heavy favorites, but this thing has shrunk now 4.5 minus 10. I wonder how much their performance against the Rams affected this line here, Keg. And are there any angles as we sit here midweek that you might be targeting in this game?
Yeah, these are two teams that we bet against last week. I was on a couple of the guys over at Rumpier were on Seattle. I had the Rams as one of my picks. I think the line's down to 5. The totals moved a couple points, 52.5. Falcons had the worst defense at the end of week 1 on paper. Obviously, Matt Ryan went crazy. I know you guys are big on DFS, obviously. All 3 Atlanta receivers had 9 receptions and over 114 yards. Defensively, though, I mean, they were a shit show, man. Seattle did whatever they wanted to do. Cowboys, a solid week. I thought the Rams were the play in that spot at home. But, we basically saw what the Cowboys are and nothing different. So as far as the prop market is concerned, it's pretty clear that they're going to be throwing often in Atlanta. I would be looking for potential overreaction in the marketplace on all 3 Atlanta Falcon receivers off those crazy games. It depends on how much those lines move from last week. As far as the total, on paper, the Cowboys are pretty solid defensively, man. So I think there might be a little value on under 52 and change. And the spread right now sits Cowboys minus 5. I really have no interest right now in that spread. If the number continues to drop as we get closer to Sunday, I might be interested in taking the Cowboys. But at 5, I'm still not interested right now. And I am not back in the Atlanta Falcons until the defense is even average. Last year, the first half of that year, they were a complete waste of life. The final 8 games, they go 6-2. Their defense allows 18 points a game. So what defense is that Atlanta Falcons team have? Is it the first half of the year last year, or the last half of the year last year. And after week 1, it looks like the abysmal half. So I'm not touching Atlanta until I see some life out of that defense. If the line continues to drop, I might look at the Cowboys.
That's a great breakdown. And Mangone, we got a high total here. And just doing those positional previews, all these guys just stuck out. This has got to be the chalk of the week. Ezekiel Elliott, smash spot. The wide receivers for Dallas. Cooper had 14 targets, 10 catches. Now he goes home after week 1. CeeDee Lamb got some love. Gallup should have had a touchdown. You can go to their tight end too, Dalton Schultz. He got 4 targets, he played only in the second half really after Jarwin went down. And then let's face it, you're not going to get 3 wide receivers and double-digit targets this week for the Falcons, are you?
Yeah, so let's look at this game. This is one of those things where I kind of agree with Jay a lot. I don't want to back this Falcons team. This defense, I'm not buying in. And I expect the Cowboys to really bounce back. I got to give props to Jay for taking the Rams over the Cowboys last week. That was a good one. I didn't know which way it would go. It was I didn't like the bet because I was I just felt like it was more of a coin flip. So I didn't have a strong take on who was going to win the game. But yeah, Cowboys, like I said, I think this offense is amazing. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. And personally, I know people were bashing Mike McCarthy. I thought he made some smart moves, right? He made the analytical decision to not kick the field goal there, and everyone was surprised. Sure, he's still Mike McCarthy, makes a couple boneheaded moves here and there, but he's progressing and trying to get better. And I like seeing that in my coach. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I used to be a Packers fan, but I like investing in coaches that are trying to do smart things, right? And that's what it seems like Mike McCarthy's trying to do. And I think he's going to really take this offense, and vault them to the next level from what they were last year. Ezekiel Elliott, I expect him to absolutely crush here in this spot, right? It's going to be in a dome. That's super helpful, right? Being in the Cowboys Stadium, that's always nice to be able to get your running back there. Should have the lead too, or at least they're projected to have that lead, you would assume. And I'm not scared of this Falcons offense. I think Zeke is one of the better running back plays of the entire slate. On the opposite side, the only issue I have with this Cowboys team is good luck predicting where the ball's going to go. Right? That's the only thing I hate about, if I'm doing stacks in DFS, right? Say I'm saying to myself, I really want to stack up this Cowboys offense. So I play Dak Prescott. Then which receiver do I stack it with? Do I stack with Amari Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz? I'm not sure. There's so many different routes you can go. One thing that's great about Dalton Schultz is he provides a little bit of value at the tight end position. And if you told me you can get a tight end on a team that has almost a 29 total, it's 28.5, 28, at 3.7K, I mean, that's phenomenal value. So
that's cash, isn't it? Unless you're going to completely punt at tight end. He might get 6 or 7 targets. I could see it. Are you going that way into GPP?
Well, I think you can go that way into GPP, especially on a site like a FanDuel, right? I think one of the shows, when I was on the Wood Show with Big T, we kind of talked about it a bit, but let me see what his price is over on FanDuel. I bet it's super cheap because the thing that's nice on FanDuel is more of a touchdown site. I already
4K.
He's 4K. That is cheap, man. And one thing I'll say about that 4K price tag, I know we have a value all over the place, but 4K is the flat min, and you can't get running backs at 4K, right? You can't get receivers at 4K. It's a special price tag on tight ends. I like that 4K price tag, and the reason why is you're not only playing Dalton Schultz because he's in a good spot or a decent spot. Let's say some of the tight ends just don't really get it done, right? Let's say you don't have a tight end that goes for a big day. Then if you save the salary and you just got all these absolute studs, it's how do you compete with that team, right? I mean, this isn't a PPR site where you get 1 point per reception. You're only getting 0.5 over on FanDuel. You're not getting the bonuses for the rushing yards and stuff like that. So a lot of those things that help capture a really high ceiling in tournaments on DraftKings, it's not just there on FanDuel. Lower scores happen. So that's why that 4K price tag on Dalton Schultz, that is pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how it all shakes up. We've probably spent too much time and maybe the most time of any DFS podcast so far this week on Dalton Schultz. So I'll move on from there.
But what if he blows up? If he blows up, that's it. This is the greatest podcast ever.
I think another thing, Mangone brings up a great point. This is a Cowboys team that looked average last week, scored 17 points against a Rams defense that had nowhere near as many weapons as it did 2 years ago, removed from the Super Bowl. And the market hangs a team total of 29.5 on Dallas. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how bad this Atlanta Falcons defense is.
Yeah, and it also tells you Vegas also is buying in that the Cowboys offense, and they've been believers in this Cowboys team from the start. If you looked at all the lines and stuff, they're not overreacting, right? They didn't see something and said, "Whoa, we made a mistake. We wanna adjust." They didn't do that. They said, "Hey, we're gonna hang this number." And maybe it's not just a bet on the Cowboys. Maybe it's also a bet against the Falcons, which certainly could be right as well. I didn't get to talk too much about the Falcons side yet. I get if you obviously the Falcons are in a great game script spot, right? Because you expect the Falcons to be trailing a ton. I also maybe want to get your take, Jay. I know you talked about this Cowboys defense being pretty good, but Van Der Esch is out, right? How much is that affecting the defense and your power rankings?
I'll be done with those ratings in 3 hours, man. So I'm not sure yet. But yeah, is he definitely out? I know he was questionable.
I thought I heard broken collarbone. I mean, I know
if that's the case, then yeah, he's done.
Yeah. I'll look it up real quick just to make sure, but maybe I heard it wrong or read it wrong, but I'll double check real quick for you.
No, he had a fractured collarbone.
Yeah.
He's on IR. So
yeah.
That's it. He's Dunsky.
Yeah, so that defense could. I mean, what I would say is that there's opportunity there, maybe to take advantage of this defense with an elite offense. Again, I'm not expecting Todd Gurley to run all over everyone. If I was attacking the Cowboys, let's say I want to do a Cowboy stack. Let's say I did Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and I ran it back, and I went Gallup or Lamb, either of the receivers, doesn't matter. I'd run it back with either Ridley or Julio, but I think I'm a Ridley guy. I've been. The start of the year, I was kind of saying to myself, I think this is the year that really takes the next step, and he hit a pretty big, massive game there. I think just running it back with Ridley is a good call. Price tag, I'm sure it went up. I don't know the exact amount it went up. I know we 6.1K last week. We got 7.1. Geez, that is a pretty big bump. Oh, that's FanDuel. That's my bad. So that was a $600 bump, and then DraftKings, I got him for a, let's see, got him for a $700 bump. He's only $600 away from Julio Jones. So I think the best way to maybe approach it is look at ownership, see how that shakes up, and see how it fits your lineups.
Hey, Keg, real quick on this game, because we spent a ton of time on it. The total, do you think it settles above 53 and a half, or does it come back down a little bit? Because this thing to me just keeps soaring.
Yeah, I think it probably continues to go up because of how bad that Atlanta defense is. Yeah. And the Cowboys had statistically the best offense in football almost the entire season last year. I think the public thinks that the 17 that they put up last week will be an anomaly. So yeah, my gut says it might rise a little more. Yeah.
I play Amari Cooper about 2 times a year in GPPs, and this is probably going to be one of those weeks. I mean, Dak was just all over him last week. Baltimore, Houston.
Real quick. Hold on. One last thing I want to mention. It probably segues into this too a little bit. So Lamar Jackson's going to be a guy that we love this week and are going to want to play. Dak may get a little overlooked just in general. And man, this is a great Dak spot, right? It's a huge total. I talked about a correlation with team totals. I'm sure Dak's price is, a pretty healthy price tag. And there's Kyler Murray in the mid-range, who we'll get to later, who's a really good play against the Redskins. There's Lamar Jackson here, who's going to be interesting. And then everyone always wants to, say, hey, let's punt it at quarterback. So maybe Dak gets a little overlooked. I think he gets overlooked in the way Russell Wilson did last week. He'll get some ownership, but man, a really good play. I think I'm going to probably have at least a Dak tournament team for sure. Oh,
no doubt about it. And the only question is, who are you pairing him with? Is it going to be Lamb? Is it going to be Gallup? Is it Cooper? You know what? Zeke got some targets last week. They said they were going to give it to him. What was he, 3 for 3 or 3 of 4? And maybe you throw him in there in a little stack. Dak dumps it down to him. He gets in the end zone. Pair him up with another wide receiver. Guys, we just spent half the show on that game, which for good reason. This is for good reason. I mean, that's going to be probably the highest rated game of the 1 o'clock hour. But let's get to this next one here. Baltimore, Houston. The Ravens 7-point favorites, and you're seeing -5 too, so that's not bad. I see that at a couple places. 51.5 -10 is the total there, Keg. So Lamar Jackson, we got Deshaun Watson. If you didn't notice Houston's offense missing DeAndre Hopkins last week, I don't know what the hell you were watching. But let's start with the spread. 7 points on the road is what Baltimore's laying. I mean, is this blowout territory?
Oh man. See, I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan, but like Bill O'Brien.
Look at him.
I'm disgusted by him. Okay,
you can't even speak. That's how disgusted you are. I can tell.
I'm torn because I love one guy and hate the other. Listen, the Ravens statistically after week 1 were the best team by a mile on Football Outsider analytics, and it makes sense, man. Now, listen, I'm on record by saying, and you guys might think I'm out of my mind, I'm not completely sold yet on Lamar Jackson. I know he's an MVP. But there's just something about me that wants to see more before I put the stamp on the kid, okay? Now, what I will say is he averaged 80 yards rushing last year. They set the number last week at about 60. He went 7 carries for 45 yards. I think if the front 7 of the Houston Texans and J.J. Watt could somehow collapse that pocket and get him moving, I think that he has the potential to fly over 60.5 yards rushing this week. But yeah, as far as the spread, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the 49ers that's 90% of your 2-team 6-point teasers this week from the public. If you're telling me, if you want to use them as one half of a 2-team tease and get that number down to 1, I guess I'm not going to tell you no. I'm just not quite. You're right. That offense looked bad without DeAndre Hopkins, and for that reason alone, I lean slightly towards laying the points. But long-term success laying a touchdown on the road, it's a losing proposition in the NFL long-term. As far as the total, I think that this total goes over because I think that the Ravens are going to put a big number up on the Texans. Now, I think as long as the Texans can score points and they can get you 17-20, I think that this is going over, to be honest. One more thing. Yeah. So I had a note about props. Said that.
It's all right. Let me get to that.
Yeah. So that's it. I probably lean taking the 7 here. Laying the 7 here, but I like the over, and I guess I would rather you throw them in a teaser than lay a touchdown on the road.
Okay. Hey, Mangone, a lot going on here. Looks like Duke Johnson, who we thought was definitely going to miss this week, he's back at practice. David Johnson coming off a monster game. Probably going to get some work this week. If they're down, he's getting it in the passing game too. Get your thoughts on Fuller. Get your thoughts on the other side, because to me, if you're paying up a tight end this week, Kelsey's out there, Kittle's out there, Andrews the guy. Kelsey got a tough matchup. Kittle's banged up. Kelsey's my man. Or actually, Andrews is my man. Excuse me.
Yeah, DFS shouldn't be too hard to discuss here. I did want to ask one question to Jay, actually, based on the stuff he said. So he's worried, obviously, and I get it, right? The road team, obviously, it's not the betting like a touchdown favorite on the road typically isn't a winner. But would you say, Jay, that if you were going to bet a road team as like a touchdown, favorite, would it be like the outlier team of like the Ravens, right? Smart analytical team. They have Lamar Jackson, right? They just seem like a complete outlier with everything.
Yeah, I would say if there were 2 teams that I'm willing to lay a touchdown on the road right now, it'd be the Chiefs and the Ravens. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the only concern I do have about the 7, I will say, is, dude, Lamar Jackson is like Mr. like backdoor. He always just absolutely shines in the 4th, and just like when Bill O'Brien has to say, hey, listen, I've screwed everything up. Can you fix it a little bit, Deshaun? He typically does, right, with his legs. So that's the only fear I would have with the backdoor cover. So if you get like, instead of 7, if you get like 6.5, I think that hook's going to matter a ton. I don't know. Do you think you'll be able to get 6.5, Jay?
Probably not. No.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's why I think the teaser idea isn't bad. And hey, it's only 7 now. If it goes to 7.5, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to touch that. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about this game in general from the DFS perspective. Now, Holden, I talked about it a lot last week. I'm probably going to jam into your brain every single week. Give me running quarterbacks, right? Running quarterback. I want a high team total too. What do the Ravens have? They have both. They have an elite running quarterback, and they have a high team total. And hey, you know what else Lamar Jackson's going to do? He's going to be in this dome, right? This dude's going to fly, right? He's just going to absolutely slaughter the Texans. It's going to be a disaster. So yeah, I think that Lamar Jackson has a massive game. The floor is insane. The ceiling is high. I think he's the top quarterback on the week and a guy you want to prioritize. Marquise Brown. Now let's look at him a little bit. As you saw, he got more snaps and ran more routes than he did in the past. He looked really good. I'm expecting him to be like more of a guy we want to just be buying in on throughout the year, right? Like, Holden, if I told you it was week 15, right, in NFL, Marquise Brown's price, it's not going to be 6.2K over on FanDuel, right? Like, it's going to be more. That price is just going to go up, up, and up. It's just what's going to happen. So I want to buy on him now while the price is right. Give me some Marquise Brown, like him a ton. I love the Andrews call by you, Holden. I think that's spot on. I was high on Andrews last week. I played a little bit of him. Main reason why is he's healthier this year. There was no more Hayden Hurst, and he ran more routes, right? It was just a perfect situation for him. He's the tight end I think you want to spend on this week. I'm torn on Travis Kelce versus him. That's like the one thing I debated, mainly because it's like, man, I like Mark Andrews, but Travis Kelce, I mean, he's Mr. Tight End 1.01, you would say. It's either him or Kittle, but obviously Kittle being banged up, he's kind of the best talent right now, you could say. But matchup obviously is a little bit better for Andrews than Kelce. So all in all, I want this Ravens offense. I don't really want to mess with the running backs too much. Sure, did J.K. Dobbins have a big game last week? Yeah, but that's because he scored 2 touchdowns. Like, he's not scoring 2 touchdowns every single week. The volume's too spread out. When I spend my money on running backs, I want to make sure that my money is being spent on bell cows, guys that are actually getting volume, and there's not enough volume there for me. Texans side of the ball, though, like Deshaun Watson, I can understand trying to run it back with him, but I don't think you need to. I just think there's enough quarterbacks on this slate where it's not necessary, but I love Will Fuller. That's a guy I want to see what his props are. I don't know how much you thought about that, Jay, but Will Fuller, the usage he's seeing, it is it's Adams like, for the Packers. I'm trying to think of who else. All those guys just get fed targets, right? Michael Thomas, he's getting that type of usage. He saw 31% of the targets or the target share last week. The air yards Will Fuller sees is insane as well. Positive game script. I mean, this couldn't be a better situation for Will Fuller this year.
I agree.
A massive year. I want to see what those props are, Jay, because I think you're going to see a lot of those aggregate numbers, right, from last year and stuff. And I don't think it's going to adjust fully right away. And Will Fuller could have some good lines.
I agree. And it was clear in that game who he was looking for the entire game. And it was Will Fuller. So I agree with that.
Oh yeah, and like one other thing to mention, like, and I don't want to, like say this and wish this upon anyone, but like it's not like Brandon Cooks and Cobb even stay on the field that easily, right? There's a good chance one of them somehow gets hurt out of nowhere, where like it would just cause Fuller to get fed even more. So I think Fuller is just
but hold on. What happens when Fuller goes down with a hamstring? Where are you going?
All right, so
talk about it. I mean, Cooks and Cobb, I'd say they're both. Cooks is always hurt, but I'd rather have Cobb than Fuller in my injury report.
So it's a fair argument and probably some bias from me, but I will say one thing that was encouraging from Will Fuller, and listen, when you're going out and doing this, like you're making sure to try and put an effort in, you're trying to improve. This man, he found, I don't know who this kind of guy is, this specialist, but he found a guy to help him not get hurt anymore. Basically, practice when he's running and like when he's like basically getting hit, he's practicing ways to like take like softer hits, basically, like when he goes to the ground and stuff like that. So the fact that I see the man trying to improve upon that makes me think he's like actually has his head in the right space and he's thinking, hey, I don't want to get hurt too much. Like maybe instead of trying to get that extra, 2 yards, I'll just go out of bounds so I can live another day.
Sound advice from Travis Mangone. Just get out of bounds so you can live another day.
Hey, that's why Jerry Rice lasted so long, man. He always got down. He didn't take those stupid hits.
I want to go way low on the list. I'm going to skip a few games that are in the middle and go down to Arizona and Washington. And Keg, I'll get your thoughts in a sec. I want to start with Mangone on this, though, because Lamar Jackson's the first guy you go to. I mean, Kyler Murray just stands 6'1" on DK. You're basically $2,000. He's $2,100 less than Lamar Jackson, okay? He's got Hopkins. I was telling you about Adams. If you wanted to pivot, DeAndre Hopkins, what did he get? 16 targets, 14 catches last week? Like, I get it. Everybody's on Jackson, but is there a chance that Murray is the chalk at quarterback this – it really doesn't matter at quarterback, too, in tournaments, right? Everything's spread around. But, like, I cannot get away from Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins this week.
Yeah, fun fact about DeAndre Hopkins. Last week, he had more, I think, total yards than the entire Texans receivers. So, DeAndre Hopkins, absolute beast. If you want to spend on him, that's perfectly fine. I will make a case for Christian Kirk, right? He is 4.3K. I mean, I get it, that face. I get it, but 4.3K for Christian Kirk is pretty insane. Saw some numbers, too. His air yards was pretty high compared to DeAndre Hopkins last week, which, again, that's because he's that deep threat. But we know how air yards works, Holden. Like, Eventually, it's going to get there, right? He's going to have that blow-up spot. I'm not saying it for sure will be week 2, but we know the air yards are there. And for the price of 4.3K, that's pretty insane. So I think you have to like him a little bit there. Obviously, you have some concerns, right? That Washington defensive line looks pretty good. I expect that defensive line to be good, but it was also partially that Lane Johnson was hurt last week. So I don't want to overreact too much and say this Washington defensive line is the best defensive line I've ever seen. Sure, they were good last week, but there were injury issues over on the Eagles side of the ball. And if that's the case, right, Kyler Murray's a guy that can get away, extend with his legs. And what can he do? When he extends with his legs, he can hit the deep ball to someone like a Christian Kirk. So tournaments, I'm telling you, man, Christian Kirk, Kyler Murray, super in play. Also love Hopkins. Like, he's an amazing option. Kenyon Drake, though, why did his price not go up? Like, I don't understand why it didn't go up a ton.
He's someone I'm day, like a gigantic day. It's stupid. I'm with you.
Oh yeah, so he didn't have a big day. Like, so what? But like, let's look at like kind of what he did, right? Like, let's pull up the production. I'm pulling up the DraftKings log right now because I'm pretty sure it was good. So he had 2 targets and he had 16 attempts against a Niners team, right? And he put up what, 14.5 DK points at 6K or 5.9K. Like, that's not the greatest performance in the world, right? But that was also against the Niners. This is now the Redskins. Like, this just makes a ton of sense. I think Drake is a really good play. Not as much in cash games. Like, I think he could be in play in cash. It depends on construction. I don't hate him as an option, but massive upside for a guy like Kenyon Drake. I mean, massive. We saw him go for 40 fantasy points against the Seahawks. So you can't not like him. I think this offense up and down is incredible in cash games and in tournaments.
All right, we'll get to the Washington side if you have anybody. But Keg, talk to me about this here. Arizona offense going nuts. I am sold on the Washington front 7, really. I think that'll come along. The defensive line is terrific. But Murray ran for 100 yards last week. Everybody sees 91. He knelt down. He lost 9 yards on kneel downs. This guy's ridiculous. So tell me about the total here, which I think, pretty interesting at 47.5. The question is Arizona, how much of it is going to be Arizona putting up these points?
Yeah, the side and total in this game, I really don't know what to think about because I don't know how to judge that Redskins defense yet. They had 8 total sacks. Like you said, that front 7 just absolutely dominated that game. But they put up 27 points. And if you look at the numbers, Haskins, 17 for 31 for $178 and a touchdown. That was garbage. Peyton Barber, 17 carries, 29 yards. Garbage. He had a couple touchdowns, but still, they were the number 1 defense analytically in the league last week, and 28th offensively. So I don't really know how to judge the Redskins yet. So I would lean probably towards staying off the side and the total. But one play I like, as long as there's not a tremendous overreaction, is Kyler Murray's rushing yards. 13 carries, 91 yards. I would wait. I think we got a better number on him live in the second half last week because JJ brought up a good point. He tends to run more in the second half than he does the first half. So I would probably wait the first quarter to see if you guys can get a little bit of value and that it drops a few yards and hop on the over then. But I'll definitely be looking at his rushing yards, and I'll probably be looking at an overreaction on Hopkins. I mean, 14 receptions, 151 yards. If they severely overreact, I might look under. But that's all because I really don't know there's no way that Redskins front 7 is as good as the Eagles made them look last week. I just don't believe that. And they're hanging a total for Arizona of like 27. I mean, that's pretty high considering Washington, only allowed 17 and analytically had the best defense in the league last week. So I'm only targeting props in this game. I want to see what this Redskins team is first.
Well, they had 8 sacks because the Philadelphia offensive line is a disaster. Can we find a prop on Ram sacks this week? Like, I'll set it at.
Oh yeah, you can. And I'll tell you, it's probably 4.5.
I'd set it at 5.5. Boom. Let's just go over.
I will say I saw news that it looks like Lane Johnson and Miles Sanders. I don't want to skip to a game, but I think they're going to play. So Lane Johnson being there will be big for that team. But yeah, that line is definitely a bit of a disaster for sure. I did want to mention on the Redskins side of the ball, like, you gotta just, if you like Will Fuller, right? I was trying to think of guys that get the usage that Will Fuller's getting, like Mr. Terry McLaurin. He's gonna get that kind of usage. He's a guy, obviously, that we can look at some of his props and see if anything is pretty interesting throughout the weekend. But yeah, Mr. McLaurin, you gotta like him. And one thing I'll say, and like, it's funny, I just kind of did like a quick Twitter search, Holden. As you know, playing DFS, you know that tight ends last year, the Cardinals could not stop them, right? And Kittle got off to a pretty hot start. But people were kind of saying like, oh, that was lazy analysis from last year. And my question is like, well,
he got hurt.
Well, yeah, I know. One, he got hurt, right? Like, so of course that's why Kittle didn't do well.
2, 3, and 4. He had 44 yards for 4 catches in the first half. He was on target for 8 catches and 90 yards. I mean, come on, man.
I know. And the second thing I was going to say about it was, let's think about it. What has changed with the Cardinals? And I'll admit, like, I don't know what's changed with the Cardinals defense. I don't think much has changed. So I'll dive into that, and on like another DFS show, I'll probably, try and, have the answer for that then. But if nothing's changed with that Cardinals defense at all at tight end, and last week seems like more of an anomaly because George Kittle got hurt. What do you want to do then with the what do you want to do with this guy? What's his name?
Logan Thomas.
Yeah, Logan Thomas. Yeah, what do you want to do with him?
Tight ends. He had 8 targets last week.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, against the Cardinals, how do you not like it at the cheap price tag? I mean, he's a cheap guy you got to go to, especially because the Redskins don't have a lot of weapons.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Here's what we got. This next game, Kansas City and the Chargers. All right, here we go. This is a good one. Kansas City and the Chargers, 8.5. Kansas City, 8.5 point favorites on the road, -10. Just about everything's -10. But I just have a habit of saying that. 47.5 is the total. Again, -10. There's going to be a lot of DFS goodness in this one. Where are you sitting on the Chargers here, Keg? Tyrod Taylor looked like what I thought he'd look like. They're just going to try and make sure he doesn't turn the ball over. I like that he went to Mike Williams a few times, but outside of that, he played it very safe, and he's not going to be able to do that against Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's probably going to lead to a couple interceptions, if I'm being honest. I got to tell you, man, 47.5 in any Chiefs game, as long as they're not playing the 85 Bears, I'm on the over. Give me the over here. So, I mean, and the Chiefs, they allow 20 up to the Texans, but they still had the 25th worst defense last week. But I think don't lay the 8.5 on the road. Could they cover it? Of course they could. But I would say use it as an anchor, as one half of the 6-point teaser on -2.5. And I'm hitting the over button hard because I think that, first of all, Kansas City could put up 40 on any given day. Okay. So I think they're good for 30 in this game at the very least. And, you get 2 touchdowns from the Chargers and you're good. So first of all, Mangone had the smash prop of the week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire he's a monster, man. 25 for 138. He looked phenomenal. I'm interested to see what they do with that. I'm interested to see the rushing yards that they set for Tyrod. He only had 7 yards, but he did rush the ball 6 times. You would think if he has 6 carries this week, he probably goes over his rush prop if it's in the range to 20 to 23 yards. As far as wideouts and tight ends go, Hunter Henry was big for the boys at the Sports Keg last year. We cashed on him a bunch last year. So we'll see what their number one option at wide receiver has been the last couple of years, Keenan Allen. Not sure what to expect from him. I'd wait to see what his average production is the first few weeks there. And like I said, as far as the spread market, I know that Kansas City has to travel and all, but I guess if you gave me a free bet, I would probably lay the 8.5. But that said, I will have them as an anchor in a few teasers this week at -2.5 and give me the over.
Nice. I like that. I'm glad you brought up Hunter Henry, Mangone. On one side, I'm not a Kelsey guy this week. Kelsey, listen, if you want to play Kelsey in tournaments, I'm all for it. But historically, so let's get your take on historically. Just the last 4 meetings, 4.5 catches, 46 yards, and he's only scored 1 touchdown over those 4 games. So, for me, Kelsey, if I have him in a GPP lineup, okay. I'm much more on the Hunter Henry side. I mean, I love this week. And 8 targets, 5 catches, Tyrod Taylor, might be his favorite receiver to throw to.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say about Tyrod Taylor, it's like, I thought maybe Tyrod would toss the rock more a little to a guy like Austin Eckler, but we're not seeing that, right? If you look at Eckler's numbers last week, he saw 68% of the snaps and he got 20 touches. Like, one bet I think I would maybe look to make is an under bet on like Eckler's receiving yards or his receptions, right? Because Tyrod just isn't this guy that targets running backs, and Phillip Rivers is. And that was something I kind of overlooked a little bit in the first week. You know what Tyrod is? He's a guy that kind of scrambles a bit. When he throws it, he's not the most accurate quarterback, right? So without being a really accurate quarterback, who do you want to throw to? Well, let me throw to the guys who can go up and get the ball. Let me throw to Mike Williams. Let me throw to Hunter Henry. Those guys fit him a lot better. So the more I look at it, I think I like those guys, especially Mike Williams. And his price is 4.2K over on DraftKings. I mean, that's appealing on a team that's going to be trailing for most of the game. So definitely think that Mike Williams could be in play. And I like that Austin Eckler under a bit. Clyde Edwards, I'd have to look at him a little more, see what his prop is going to be, see if the market, over adjusts too much or if it doesn't adjust enough. That's something I obviously want to look at. The one problem I have with the Chiefs and like playing Travis Kelce, yeah, I like him. He's great. He's awesome. I just worry a little bit about production getting spread out a ton, right? They got a lot of guys. They have Edwards. They have that Darrell Williams guy who they give a little bit of time to. They have Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen there, right? I like Kelce. Do I want to allocate my salary to Travis Kelce? Don't know if I want to do that.
I'm hoping Ty Freak just busts out this week against Ty God. Tyreek Hill, let's do it, man. Let's get that 3-touchdown game. Let's get it going already, It's
fun, but it's annoying to chase. I will say that. When I do chase that game, Holden, I want to make sure it's when it's like I can get it all to myself, right? If I told you, Holden, to look at the calendar and pick the 2 or 3 big Tyreek Hill games like every year, it'd be like just throw a dart instead, right? It's going to be difficult to do. But I want to do that when the ownership is low. So I don't know what the ownership is going to be, but if it's like 20%, I'll pass. If it's like 2%, sign me up.
Yeah, I think Mike Williams is really intriguing, especially on FanDuel, just in case he doesn't get 9 targets again. But he also drew a PI down the field. Taylor just looked at him. If he's going deep, and there's no Keenan Allen mentions, does he just, what's going on with him? It's one game, but we saw no Keenan Allen. He was non-existent.
Yeah, and again, it's because of, I think, Tyrod just not super accurate, right? He just get to throw it to a guy who can go up and get it, Holden. Listen, I'm no expert, but if I'm throwing the football around and I know I can't throw too well, I'm not this super accurate guy, I'm going to throw a dude who can go up and get it. Mike Williams can go up and get the ball, and I got some faith in him at that price tag. 4.2K is just too cheap.
All right, guys, we got Tennessee at Jacksonville. Total is 42, and we have Tennessee -9. I am seeing over at Circa, I got 8.5. So Tennessee at home against the Jacksonville team. I got to tell you, Keg, they showed a little life, dude. Gardner Minshew. He's got a couple weapons he's working with. Defensively, I still, not too sold on that. But Jacksonville looked better than I thought they would week 1. I don't know if that's because Indianapolis stunk so bad or because, hey, Minshew legitimately had a good game. I thought he made some nice plays. So any lean here? How about this? Start with the Jacksonville side. What did you take away week 1 from them?
Well, I think you nailed it. I thought that the offense looked like there was some life there. I thought Gardner Minshew had a really efficient game. He was 19 for 20, $170 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. If he gets that every week, this team's going to probably go, 7-9, 8-8, where they were projected for 4 wins. So I like them last week personally. And defensively, I know they gave up the 20 to the Colts, but they were still in the top 15 in defensive DVOA. So I thought that if you got the +11 on Monday night, you're in good shape. Would I lay the 8.5 or take the 8.5? I wouldn't. I think there's a little value, though, on the total. Because, the Titans beat the Broncos 16-14, but they really should have had 30. I think 42.5 is a little low. First of all, do we know, is Gostkowski still on the team?
Yeah, they didn't cut him yet.
They didn't cut him, right? I mean, he was a top 3 field goal kicker for a decade. It seems like Belichick cuts the cord and people just go to shit. It's amazing his timing. So I think there's a little value on the over at 42.5 because the Broncos moved the football a lot better than I thought they would against the Titans defense that did not record a single sack or a single interception all game long. So I like the over. As far as the props market, I'm all over Derrick Henry rushing attempts. Again, you and I grabbed rushing attempts over live on the Monday night show at 23.5. And I expect Tennessee to probably have a lead late in the third quarter. And I think that they're going to feed the ball to Henry in the fourth quarter to put this game away. And if it's in that 21.5, 22.5, 23.5 range again, I'm all over Henry rushing attempts over and give me the over in the game.
Live, or would you bet that before the game?
Well, I think if I remember, Matt took it pregame at 20.5. He had 13 or 14 rushes in the first half. That's when me and you grabbed the over 23.5. So if they're going to hang 20.5 or 21 pregame, I think that's really safe. Is he going to have 31 again? Maybe not, but he's got to be good for 25, 26 in a game that they should be leading in the second half. So I like it.
Hey, Mangone, all of us bet. I mean, Keg's the bets guy, but all of us bet. What do you think about that Henry prop there?
Yeah, I mean, I like the call on it. I mean, I think I just think they're gonna feed him into the ground, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in this like Jaguars offense a bit, mainly because I just think, not that I don't like Minshew, just I think what I like with this Jaguars team is I know they're going to be trailing all the time, right? So I know he's going to be throwing a ton. And I think Gardner Minshew is like the perfect guy for this, like, hey, we're down, like just make some stuff happen, right? I think he fits that pretty perfectly. That spread it out offense too. So I like Minshew, but not as much in this spot, mainly because I just think the Titans are going to kill so much clock. So I think in DFS, the Jaguar side is not a side I'm going to jump on this week. There's going to be weeks where I'm going to be in on Minshew and the boys, but not this week. I think Derrick Henry is the guy. I think he's going to absolutely get fed. I like that call by Keg. And I think going to Derrick Henry makes a ton of sense. I think he's going to be a really good DFS option. And that's all I really got in this game. Not really a game I want to target too much in DFS.
Mangone, I think there's going to be a decision to be made for Derrick Henry and Zeke Elliott. And then, neither one of these guys are major pass catchers, but we saw them get a little bit more involved. And Zeke is 8'2", and Derrick Henry's 7'9" on DraftKings. Now, I can go over and look on FanDuel, but to me, both of these guys could just crush. If you're in FanDuel and you want to pay up for running back and go crazy and find some value somewhere else, plug in Logan Thomas, plug in, one of the Dalton Schultz, go for it. But is there one guy you would lean to? Like if I said everything being equal, Zeke and Henry, you have enough money to fit one of them in. Which one?
My lean is Zeke, I would say, mainly because the thing that's nice about Zeke is there's a little more shootout potential there in that Falcons game. And shootout potential definitely is going to help Zeke no matter what. I mean, obviously, if they're leading, it helps him too. But I just see more pass to where Zeke's goes right rather than Henry's, right? I could see Henry's game just be a slow game and not a ton of plays. We know what's going to happen on the the Falcons side. They're going to throw, and that leads to the clock dying a ton. So yeah, I just think Ezekiel Elliott has more outs. But listen, Holden, we can just have both, man. I mean, listen, you can do both. You can just play both guys and just maybe that's a unique build this week. I don't know what the build construction is going to be, but if it's going to be unique, you ain't going to be mad about that.
No, and again, when I looked at this, like three guys stood out: Kyler Murray, and then these two guys, Henry and Elliott. So here's the next question for you in this game. You've got Corey Davis sitting at 4K and A.J. Brown at 6.1K. So do you buy Corey Davis breaking out, or do we go back to A.J. Brown and they try and force him the ball and just get him rolling this week?
Yeah, so this might be bad analysis, but if you play Showdown, Holden, I played against some dude who put freaking Corey Davis at the MVP slot on FanDuel. And I lost to him. So I'm super tilted about Corey Davis. So I am not rationally thinking well about him.
That's horrible. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the whole Corey Davis situation is. I don't get why he got fed so much. And I saw some people saying he's this year's Devontae Parker. I think that was Matthew Berry who said that. And I was just laughing because I don't think that's the case. But I'll admit I probably need to do some more Corey Davis research. It's a little early in the week, so I don't want to give you a bad answer. I'm tilted about Corey Davis. So that's annoying
Brown
story.
got a ton of work too. I mean, they came back with Brown. I'm just saying.
I just prefer them holding in games. It's like a shootout, right? Like, I don't know. I think this game's gonna be super slow. It seems lame.
Listen, they declined his 5th-year option this offseason. So, I mean, I think there's question as to whether or not they believe in the guy.
He's been in the league for 5 years.
Yeah, this is it.
Jeez, that made me feel old.
Any other plays from this, or we move on? Like Keelan Cole is out there. James Robinson. We didn't even talk about Robinson yet.
Yeah, I just don't love the game environment for him, right? There's gonna be better values on the slate, so I don't want to mess with that too much. Sheenholt's like an interesting guy that I think I heard them basically talk because Gruden's the coordinator. He basically said he's using Sheenholt like he used Mohamed Sanu with the Bengals, which kind of makes some sense, right? He's going to use him as like a total gadget guy. So that'll be intriguing to see what happens with him. The only worry about that with Sheenholt for some of his props is like you're never going to be able to predict what he's going to do, right? Is he going to rush it? Is he going to catch it? So maybe there'll be some value on Sheenholt's under on receiving yards at some point, just mainly because of that. But I don't know. I don't really know what to do with this game too much. It's really Derrick Henry or bust for me.
Who are you talking about?
Shenault. Sorry, I said Sheenholt. Shenault.
I had no idea who Shio was. I thought you said Shio. But yes,
No.
Laviska Shenault. There you go, buddy. I like it. Last one. Keg, let's get to you on this one. We got Denver and Pittsburgh. I got to tell you, Drew Lock, he looked good. It's one game, but it was not an easy defense. And he went out, and I thought he really tore it up. Pittsburgh, 7.5-point favorites at home, -10. The total here is 41.5. Yeah, this is interesting, right? So no Von Miller. Bradley Chubb did look okay, but now A.J. Bouyer's probably going to be out there in the secondary. That Pittsburgh defense looked magnificent. Turf toe for Phillip Lindsay. So now we're probably getting more volume for for Melvin Gordon on the DFS side, Mangone. But Denver, Pittsburgh, any leans here? Props, games, total, anything?
Yeah, Pittsburgh, my favorite defense this year. I do think when it all shakes out, they'll be the best defense in football. The Broncos, we hit obviously Melvin Gordon live. They're gonna, like you said, they're gonna be leaning on him even more. But I do think the prop of the game, which I missed last week, is going to be Noah Fant over receptions. Depending on where it shakes out, it opened up at 3.5 last week, and it went as high as 5.5 in some places. I think that Roethlisberger looked like a guy that hadn't played football in a year last week, but you could see in the second half, he started looking more like himself. Oftentimes when you're betting the NFL, the value gets sucked out of the side in totals. So for people that just bet sides and totals in the NFL, I say you got to look in the derivative market because that's where you're going to find most of your edges in an NFL football game. As far as the total at 41.5, I don't want to touch the over only because I think Pittsburgh's defense is really that good. If you had to pin me down, I would probably take the 7.5, but I have the Steelers in a couple teasers down to 1.5. I do think they win the game. Maybe it's a little closer than people think because you said Drew Lock looked really good, but I'm not taking it because of how good that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is this year. So if you're looking to back the Steelers, I would say go over their team total at 24. And that would really be it. Melvin Gordon over carries might be a look. Definitely Noah Fant over receptions. And Juju anytime touchdowns would be another look that I'd be looking for in that game.
Okay. I like some of these angles here. Mangone. So, excuse me, we don't have an update on Cortland Sutton. We do know Jerry Jeudy got fed a little bit. Melvin Gordon, what are they going to do? Mix Royce Freeman in there with him?
Right.
And then Noah Fant, who we know Keg loves. And on the other side, what are we doing at running back here? right? So Connor, it's still possible he plays, but let's go under the assumption because we're not playing Benny Snell if Connor is going to be healthy. Do we play Benny Snell this week against the Broncos?
He looked good, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chance we do. I did want to mention, Jay, you talked about getting pinned down. No one on this pod is pinning you down. No one's down for that. So settle down over there, man. But Benny Snell, he's a guy, right? Like, we got to consider him. I think he's in play. He's going to be the value I think we're going to be discussing with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if we're going to get to that game, but Jonathan Taylor, I guess we should talk about those two. He's going to be a guy I'm definitely going to looking strong at as a value, and so is Benny Snell. I mean, there's reasons to like him. They're going to have a positive game script. He looked really good. You do have the fears, though, like Jalen Samuels is lurking. I would like to see like the snap count difference, all those things. But there's a good chance. Let's say Connor doesn't play, right? What if Benny Snell and Samuels, they're both running the ball. They each get 5 attempts, and Snell has, 5 carries for 10 yards, and Samuels has like 5 carries for like 35 yards. Breaking news, Jalen Samuels getting the work. That's just what's going to happen, in my opinion. So I would definitely be very concerned about that. So that's the one fear I have, unless we get like the coach speak that says he's our bell cow, he's our guy. So yeah, Benny Snell definitely in play. I like the Juju call. I think he's going to be an integral part of this offense this year. He struggled last year and only had 2 touchdowns. He'll get some positive regression coming his way back with Ben Roethlisberger. So that's good. And I love the Noah Fant call. I think Noah Fant makes a ton of sense. He's a cheap tight end, really cheap on FanDuel specifically, and he's going to get fed a ton of targets. Obviously, we need to see what happens with the Cortland Sutton situation. Definitely want to see what's going on there and see if he's going to be healthy enough. And I don't want to mess with Melvin Gordon, just a tough defense. I agree with Jay. He put his power ratings up. I remember I looked at the power ratings when they first were out for week 1, and I was just kind of giving it a glance. And I was like, man, the Steelers are pretty high. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, that's actually pretty accurate. Like, the Steelers are going to be pretty good this year. And I think the Steelers are in a pretty good spot. I'm curious how his power ratings ranked this week because they beat the Giants out last week. I wonder if they'll be strong enough to beat the Broncos out again and be another good bet.
Okay. So here we go. We're done with these games. Follow me on Twitter at Holden Radio. My video positional early week previews are out for DFS. Hey, Keg, I've been making money with you guys in the live bets show. So why don't you plug the live bet show so people can watch and maybe make some money with us?
Monday night and Thursday night for Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football open to the public. Saturday, we do college football and UFC live betting for subscribers. And then Sunday all day from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we're live betting the NFL over at Rum Pure Bets. Obviously, the handle is Rum Pure Bets. And then follow me at Kegger CEO.
Mangone.
Yeah, you can follow me at Travis Mangone on Twitter. You can also find me, doing content over here at Run Pure Sports. I'll be on a ton of different shows, doing core plays, all of that. The big show that we have is the Wood Show, right, on Sunday morning. So if you're not doing anything, 10 a.m., hang out with me, Hoop, and Big T. We'll be doing that. It's a really, really good time. We break down the games, give our last final thoughts. That show, it's premium, but it's not premium for like if you watch live. So if you watch live with us, you'll get that for free. But once it goes, once the show's over, that thing goes behind the paywall, yeah. And then you're afterwards, Holden.
But man, let's face it, okay? The best show Sunday morning is me and JSU leading up the lock. I mean, if you watched that show last week, you made tons of money because all he said, Rodgers, Lazard, Thielen. Boom.
I love Holden putting the flag in the ground, bro.
Yeah, don't even
start. Letting you know what the best show was.
Now, listen, Holden, listen here. Okay, so the Wood Show, it's a big show, man, and it's a show that everyone shows up to. Listen, because it's the fun show. It's like it's great. It can do no wrong. It's like the fun uncle, right? It's the best. Everyone loves him. You guys are like, you're like the mom and dad, right? You're down to visit.
Patrick Mahomes, you're Mitch Trubisky. That's fine.
Oh, don't this. No. I'm not taking that disrespect. Big T won't like that. Don't have me.
Well, it's not Big T's fault. I mean, Big T's the anchor. He's just getting dragged down in this. All right, before I get in any trouble, let me get out of here.
Oh, man. Don't let me tell Big T you called him Mitch Trubisky. Oh.
I love you. Keg, awesome doing the show with you. I can't wait till we do it the rest of the year. This is great. The guys on the bet side, too. Do not forget, like, if you play DFS, it's going to be easier to make the transition to betting. It's predictive analytics. Same thing on the betting side. Betting, predictive analytics. Put it over there on the DFS side. So everything goes together. We got our combo package out there. Just get it. For Mangone and Keg, I'm Holden, and we'll catch you later.